Hello everyone, welcome to the 17-Mile Story Collection. Today we'll dive into the immortal cultivation diary of the young Zhao Sr. Zhao's son walked out of the garden in his bright red inner disciple robe. Instantly, all the registered disciples turned their heads. At first, their faces were full of envy, but the moment they realized it was him, their expressions twisted into scorn and jealousy. Wait, so the sect master's new disciple yesterday was him? The guy who once faked suicide just to get into the sect? Yeah, no doubt he must have done something filthy to please the elders. Otherwise, how could trash like him ever step into the inner sect? Look at that fool's face. Even if he's an inner disciple, he'll always be at the bottom. Cultivation isn't some child's game. All kinds of mocking voices reached Zhao Sen's ears. He only cast a cold glance around and thought, once I gain enough strength, I'll make every last one of you pay. He went straight to the eastern spring, splashed the icy water on his face, drank a few gulps, and then sat down cross-legged to cultivate. But not far away, hidden in a tree, Elder Nyo was watching, his brows tightly furrowed. That brat. He said he came out to look for a gourd, but instead he's just sitting here cultivating? What, does he really think a gourd will just float down from upstream into his hands? Elder Nyo had secretly followed him, curious to see how Zhao's son managed to find gourds. But after an entire morning, all he saw was the boy quietly meditating. Zhao's son, however, was calm. He believed that during the qi condensation stage, it all came down to how much spiritual energy you could store. His talent was poor, but if he couldn't absorb much at once, then he'd make it up with sheer time and persistence. By noon, he finally stood up, stretched, and felt his stomach rumble. Slowly, he began walking back toward the sect. Up in the tree, Elder Nyo almost exploded. Damn brat, I've wasted a whole morning with you. Fine. If one day isn't enough, I'll watch you for a month. If a month isn't enough, I'll watch you for a year. I don't believe you only have that one gourd. With that, he leapt from the tree and rushed back to the medicine garden ahead of Zhao's son. Not long after, Zhao's son strolled back. Elder Nyo stroked his beard and forced a smile. My disciple, did you manage to find a gourd this morning? Zhao's son sighed, shaking his head. Master, I waited by the spring all morning, but no gourd appeared. I'll check again this afternoon, maybe I'll get lucky. Inside, Elder Nyo cursed. You sat there with your eyes shut the whole time. Even if a gourd floated right past your nose, you wouldn't have seen it. But outwardly, he spoke kindly. Very good. Zhao's son, go eat first, then try again later. When Zhao's son returned to his room, a full meal was waiting for dishes and a steaming soup. Without thinking twice, he devoured it all, even licking the bowl clean before lying down for a nap. In the shadows, Elder Nyo's eyes gleamed coldly. Sect rules forbid me from poisoning his food, but nothing stops me from slipping in medicine that blocks his absorption of spiritual energy. With his mediocre talent and my little trick on top, he'll never break through the third layer of qi condensation. He'll be trapped under my thumb for life. An hour later, Zhao's son woke, straightened his clothes, and headed out again, back to the spring to cultivate until sundown. Then, instead of leaving, he wandered off into the forest. From above, Elder Nyo perked up, silently tailing him. Zhao's son wandered left and right, scanning his surroundings, until suddenly his eyes lit up. He rushed over to a patch of vines covered in wild gourds, plucked one that looked decent, and hurried away. When Elder Nyo arrived, he frowned deeper and deeper. These are just ordinary gourds, not a trace of spiritual energy. Still unconvinced, he picked a few himself, only to be mocked mercilessly by fellow disciples when they caught him carrying them back. At the medicine garden, Zhao's son politely presented the gourd. Master, I was lucky today. I didn't find any at the spring, but in the mountains I found plenty. This one looks most like the one I had before. Elder Nyo nearly exploded. He snatched the gourd, tossed it aside, and shouted furiously. The gourd I want must be filled with spiritual energy. This worthless wild gourd is useless. The thought of wasting an entire day, only to be tricked and humiliated, made his blood boil. Zhao's son, however, just looked innocent. Master, but I don't even know what spiritual energy is. Could you explain it to me? For the first time, Elder Nyo froze. He stared at Zhao's son, doubt gnawing at his heart. Could it be that there really was only one spiritual gourd, that this fool stumbled upon it purely by accident. And then regret hit him like a hammer. Damn it, his talent was already weak, and with the medicine I slipped him, he might not even reach the first layer of chi condensation for decades. If he can't sense spiritual energy at all, then I've wasted everything. Elder Nyo let out a heavy sigh, unwilling but determined. At last, he pulled out a low-grade spirit stone from his pouch and tossed it to Zhao-san. This is what I promised you. Use it to cultivate and reach the first layer of chi condensation as soon as possible. Zhao-san quickly accepted it, thanked him, and returned to his room. But Elder Nyo stood frozen, lost in thought. No choice. If he reaches the first layer, then I can test him with Soul Search. Even if my cultivation drops a whole stage, it'll be worth it. Soul Search, though a simple spell, was infamous for its cruelty. 9 out of 10 victims died instantly, their souls shattered. The rare survivors became mindless husks. Worse still, the heavens placed a restriction. It could not be used on mortals below the cultivation path. To bypass that rule, Zhao's son had to break through first. That night, Zhao's son sat cross-legged, gripping the spirit stone. His mind was sharp, but his body remained unchanged. No spiritual energy entered at all. He sighed bitterly. Just then, the door creaked open. Elder Nyo stepped in, face dark, holding a bowl of pitch-black liquid. "Drink this." Zhao's son blinked in shock. "Master, what is it?" Elder Nyo's temper flared instantly. "You think I'd harm you? If it weren't to help you break through, do you think I'd waste my precious herbs to brew this?" Seeing his master's glare, Zhao's son dared not refuse. He held his breath, raised the stone bowl, and swallowed it all in one go. At once, a searing heat erupted in his belly, racing through his body like fire. His vision dimmed, and he nearly collapsed. "Start meditating. I'll help you absorb it." Though reluctant, Elder Nyo pressed a hand against Zhao Sen's chest, sending a stream of cooling energy inside. Zhao Sen's mind cleared, and he immediately began his breathing technique. Elder Nyo glanced at the shattered bowl, heart aching, then gritted his teeth and laid several more spirit stones at Zhao Sen's side. "Brat, I've spent heavily on you this time. One day, you'll pay me back in full." And sure enough, after a while, Elder Nyo felt it, faint currents of spiritual energy forming within Zhao Sen's body. His eyes lit up. Finally, it's working. But then, disaster. A surge of foul energy suddenly burst out of Zhao Sen's core, snuffing out every trace of gathered spiritual power. Elder Nyo's face turned ashen. He recognized it instantly. The dissolving grass. The very poison I gave him yesterday. He tried again and again, but each attempt ended the same way. The foul chi devoured every shred of progress. Only after the medicine's effect fully faded did Zhao Sen's body return to silence. At last, Elder Nyo withdrew his hand, staring blankly at his disciple. His heart twisted with regret. "I've done this to myself. I've destroyed his path with my own hands." When Zhao Sen opened his eyes, his whole body felt light and comfortable, refreshed as if reborn. He was about to offer his thanks, but to his surprise, Nyo Daju only gave a bitter look, flicked his sleeve, and left the room without a word. Startled, Zhao Sen couldn't figure out what his master was thinking. He stretched his body, then walked to the doorway and called out loudly, "Master, I'm going to the mountain spring to see if I have better luck today." The gate of the garden opened silently. Though Nyo Daju said nothing, he tacitly allowed it. Zhao Sen quickly went out, unaware that Nyo Daju, still unwilling to give up, was following him in secret. Thus, a month passed in the blink of an eye. Day after day, Zhao's son went to the spring to meditate, while Nyo Daju hid nearby, watching. Yet with each passing day, his disappointment deepened. No matter how many medicinal brews Zhao's son consumed, his body never managed to gather even a wisp of spiritual energy. Nyo Daju's temper grew more and more irritable. What pained him most was the gourd he had once pinned his hopes on. Its spiritual aura gradually leaked away until after only a month it had become no different from an ordinary wild gourd. Water stored within came out exactly as it went in, without the slightest trace of spiritual energy. Crushed, Nyo Daju carefully analyzed the situation and came to a conclusion. The gourd itself was no immortal treasure. It must have undergone some temporary change, producing a brief surge of spiritual power. Zhao's son had only obtained it by chance, and the possibility of him owning another such gourd was almost non-existent. The more Niu Dazhu thought about it, the more bitter his heart became. For an entire month, he had neglected nearly everything else, brewing potions daily, exhausting both his energy and precious herbs, only to end up with nothing. Enraged, he summoned Zhao's son, scolded him harshly, and with a flick of his sleeve expelled him from the main courtyard. From then on, whenever he saw Zhao's son, irritation boiled up in his chest. At last, he decided it was better not to see him at all. In time, he nearly forgot about this disciple altogether. In his mind, even with all the herbs Zhao's son had consumed, it would take at least 10 or 20 years before he could hope to reach the first layer of qi condensation, unless Niu Dazhu chose to recklessly squander even more resources. But such an investment he was no longer willing to make. Zhao Sen's expulsion from the main courtyard might have seemed humiliating, especially with all the snide remarks from the registered disciples. But in truth, he didn't care. In fact, he enjoyed the freedom. Over the past month, he'd pieced together a clearer picture of the cultivation world. The path of immortality was divided into 7 great realms: qi condensation, foundation establishment, core formation, nascent soul, spirit transformation, infant change, and ascension. Within Penglai Pavilion, only 2 masters had reached the core formation stage. They lived high in the back mountains, shut away in seclusion, rarely interfering with sect affairs. Fewer than 10 cultivators had achieved foundation establishment, yet they were the true backbone of the sect, enjoying endless privileges, spirit stones, artifacts, anything they desired. The rest? Almost all were still stuck in qi condensation. Even Niu Dazhu, for all his bluster, was only at the 5th layer. Cultivation was brutally difficult. Without talent, a lifetime of decades wouldn't be enough to break through even the 1st realm. Qi condensation alone could devour years, let alone the stages beyond, which demanded not only abundant spiritual energy, but also luck and enlightenment. Knowing this, Zhao Sen's longing for his mysterious pearl burned hotter than ever. Though he still hadn't drawn a single wisp of spiritual energy into his body, he believed, so long as he kept drinking water infused by the pearl, his progress would quicken. And more than that, hidden away at his secret spot were 3 gourds of dew, brimming with spiritual essence. Surely, drinking them would be even more effective than a month's worth of medicinal brews. To him, leaving the main courtyard and escaping Niu Dazhu's constant surveillance was a blessing. As an inner disciple, he couldn't live in the main courtyard, but he had the right to settle in any of the 5 side courts. Zhao's son chose a secluded hut in the fire court near the eastern gate. The privileges of inner disciples weren't small either. On the 10th day of each month, they could collect a fragment of a lower-grade spirit stone and a soul-seizing pill from the pill hall. 10 fragments could be exchanged with their master for a complete stone. Once he set up his new home, Zhao's son didn't rush to retrieve his treasures. He feared Niu Dazhu might still be watching, so he kept up appearances, meditating at the spring by day, cultivating quietly in his room by night. Sure enough, Niu Dazhu lingered in the shadows, spying for another 10 days, before finally, utterly giving up. And so a month later, under the cover of night, Zhao's son slipped away. He wound through mountain paths, reached his hidden spot, and retrieved the mysterious pearl and 3 gourds of dew. Tucked safely into his storage pouch, they drew no attention. To anyone watching, he looked no different than usual. After a few cautious days, Zhao's son confirmed there was nothing unusual. Finally, he felt safe enough to stop visiting the mountain spring and devoted himself entirely to studying the mysterious pearl. The pearl's cloudy patterns had grown from 7 to 9, almost covering its entire surface, leaving only a nail-sized gap. He was certain that would be where the 10th cloud appeared. Meanwhile, the dew inside the 3 gourds had thickened into a viscous liquid. The one filled with morning dew was so concentrated it had nearly solidified like a jelly. Then a daring thought struck him. What if he poured all 3 gourds of dew onto the pearl? Would it instantly bring forth the 10th cloud? The very idea made his heart pound. 9 clouds filled. The 10th was bound to bring change. And it might just be the pearl's final transformation. But today was the 10th of the month, time to claim his spirit stone and pill from the sect's main courtyard. With dusk approaching, Zhao's son carefully stowed the pearl and gourds in his pouch, tucked it close to his chest, and set off for the pill hall. Before he even arrived, a familiar voice echoed across the courtyard. "Senior Sister Zhao, my master told me to stay in seclusion for 3 months to break through the first stage of qi condensation. But I couldn't stop thinking of you. At last night, I succeeded. I rushed into the mountains to pick this flower for you. Look how beautiful its petals are. A great serpent was guarding it. I nearly died fighting it off. Look at my arm, I was injured." Zhao's son paused mid-step, frowning slightly, a cold smile tugging at his lips. Then came a crisp, bird-like voice. "Senior brother Zhao, my family's been practicing medicine for generations. That flower is nothing but ordinary moral fragrance. I saw plenty on the mountain. And a snake protecting it? Please. If that were true, Punlai Pavilion's mountains would be crawling with snakes. Senior Sister Zhao, don't be fooled." Stepping into the pill courtyard, Zhao Sen's eyes swept across 4 figures, 2 men, 2 women, all dressed in crimson. The handsome young man who had just been boasting now looked utterly embarrassed. He turned to argue, but his gaze froze on Zhao's son, and his expression twisted into disbelief. "Zhao's son, you. What are you doing here? You should be home, helping your father with carpentry." "Zhao's son? You're Zhao's son? The one who faked a suicide to sneak into the sect, then buttered up Uncle Niu to become his disciple? That's you," gasped a young girl. Her glossy black braids swung as she covered her mouth, wide eyes sparkling with mischief. The other 2 were just as stunned, especially the younger girl with long lashes and innocent, crystal-like eyes. She blinked at Zhao's son with curious interest, as if seeing something unexpected. Expressionless, Zhao's son glanced at them all. The moment the braided girl spoke, he remembered her. She was the sharp-tongued one from the talent test. If so, then the other girl had to be none other than Senior Sister Zhao herself. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my video, please leave a comment, give it a like, and share it with others. Your support gives me even more motivation.